My wife's little surprise turned me into her girly maid. My name is Daniel, though almost nobody calls me that. To most people, I'm just Dan. The only time Daniel comes out is when someone's serious or when I'm in trouble. I'm 32, quiet by nature, dependable to a fault, and the kind of man who finds comfort in routine. Some people might say I'm a little obsessive about keeping things tidy. I prefer to call it organized. And then there's my wife, Emma. Emma is the exact opposite of me. Where I fade into the background, she commands attention. She walks into a room and people notice. She laughs loudly, talks easily, and has the kind of confidence that makes strangers feel like old friends. We've been married for 5 years, and in that time I've done everything I could to be a good husband. Reliable, supportive, predictable. That last one might have been the problem. Emma never directly complained, but I could sense it sometimes. That subtle look when I chose staying home over going out. The playful teasing about how I treated life like a checklist. I wasn't exciting. I wasn't spontaneous. I was safe. And safe can sometimes mean boring. Still, even the most ordinary men carry secrets. Mine lived in the back of our closet, hidden behind old winter coats and 2 dusty garment bags. Inside a small box was my hidden collection. Nothing extravagant. Just a few pieces I'd quietly gathered over the years. A soft pastel blouse, a pair of silky black stockings, and a red velvet dress I'd once ordered online using a fake name, just in case. I didn't wear them often, only when Emma was away for work trips or out late with friends. Those nights, I'd close the curtains, lock the door, and allow myself to become something else. I never really had a name for it. It wasn't like I thought of myself as another person. It was more like stepping into a different mood, shedding the heavy armor I wore every day. When satin brushed against my skin, something inside me relaxed. Something quiet and hidden felt free for a little while. Of course, I knew how people would judge it. And the thought of Emma discovering it terrified me. Every time I dressed like that, the fear lingered in the back of my mind. If she ever found out, I might lose everything, her trust, her respect, maybe even our marriage. So I buried that side of myself. Under routines, under long work hours, under carefully scheduled dinners and quiet evenings. Emma once joked that I approached life like a well-organized to-do list. We both laughed. But part of me wondered if that was her polite way of saying she was bored. The truth is, I wasn't always so cautious. Back in college, I was more adventurous. I dragged Emma to open mic nights, experimented with different styles, tried new things just for fun. Once, half joking, I even mentioned wearing heels for a Halloween costume. Emma laughed and called it cute, but something in her tone made me quickly drop the subject. After that, I locked those curiosities away. Over time, life became gray. Emma kept chasing color. Our apartment reflected that contrast perfectly. A modern loft with cool concrete walls softened by the plants and long flowing curtains Emma insisted on buying. I worked from home most days for a marketing company, while Emma ran her fast-growing event planning business. Her schedule was chaotic, early mornings, late nights, endless parties and weddings. She always came home with stories. Wild bachelorette parties, over-the-top brides, lavish venues filled with champagne and music. And I would listen quietly, nodding along, feeling like a spectator in my own life. I never suspected Emma might be keeping secrets of her own. Not until last Thursday. That morning she told me she'd be away all weekend. Some last-minute out-of-town event she couldn't refuse. "You'll have the whole place to yourself," she said with a playful smile. "Just don't do anything too crazy while I'm gone." She winked. I laughed, brushing it off. But there was something in her expression, something knowing. Still, I didn't question it. I kissed her goodbye at the door and watched her roll her expensive suitcase down the hallway toward the waiting Uber outside. The moment the door shut behind her, something inside me shifted. I waited 10 minutes, then 20, just to be safe. Finally, I walked to the closet. That familiar thrill returned instantly. The excitement, the nervous energy. I pulled the hidden box down and carried it to the bed, my heart pounding like I was committing some kind of crime. One by one, I laid everything out. The red velvet dress, the stockings. A small tube of lip gloss. Even a silver wig I'd bought months earlier, but never had the courage to try. Slowly, I changed. Jeans off. Stockings on. The silky fabric sliding across my skin sent a shiver up my spine. Every movement felt strangely electrifying. When I finally zipped up the dress and stood in front of the mirror, the reflection staring back didn't feel like Dan anymore. It was someone softer, more graceful, maybe even beautiful in a strange way. I didn't have a name for her. Maybe she didn't need one. For the next few hours, I wandered around the apartment in heels, practicing little poses in the mirror, adjusting my posture the way I'd seen Emma do countless times. It felt ridiculous and wonderful. By late afternoon, I poured myself a drink, put on soft music, and curled up on the couch with my legs crossed. For the first time in a long time, I felt beautiful. But beauty comes with risks. When I stood up to stretch and glanced toward the entryway, my heart nearly stopped. The front door wasn't fully shut, just barely open. An inch. But that inch was enough to send ice through my veins. Had I left it like that? Or had someone else been here? A sudden wave of panic washed over me. I hurried across the room, my heels clicking nervously against the floor, and pushed the door closed before locking it tight. Then I looked around the apartment again. Nothing seemed out of place. No signs of anyone entering. Still, the feeling of being watched clung to me. My clothes were scattered on the bed. Lipstick sat open on the bathroom counter. And in the hallway mirror, a nervous woman stared back at me. This wasn't just embarrassing anymore. It was dangerous. I reached behind my back to unzip the dress, desperate to change. Then I heard a sound from the kitchen. A soft ding. My phone. I walked over slowly and picked it up. One new message. From Emma. Emma, having fun? My throat tightened. I typed back nervously. Me? What do you mean? The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. A few seconds later, another message arrived. Emma, you look really good in that dress. It suits you. For a full minute, I couldn't breathe. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Emma had known all along. The phone slipped from my hand and landed on the couch cushion as if it had scorched my fingers. My legs felt unsteady. I stumbled backward and dropped into the armchair, trying to breathe through the wave of panic building in my chest. How did she know? The question repeated in my mind over and over. Had Emma come back without me noticing? Had she seen everything? Or, worse, was she watching me somehow? That thought made my stomach twist. My eyes darted around the room, scanning every corner. The bookshelf, the ceiling vent, the small decorative lamp by the window. Any place a camera could be hidden. Nothing obvious stood out. But that didn't mean it wasn't there. My phone vibrated again. Emma, go check the bed. I stared at the message for several seconds before forcing myself to stand. Every step toward the bedroom felt heavier than the last, like I was walking straight into a trap. The velvet dress suddenly felt tighter against my body. When I entered the room, something immediately caught my attention. On the bed, resting beside the clothes I'd thrown aside earlier, was a black envelope. I was certain it hadn't been there before. My hands trembled as I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a folded note written in Emma's elegant handwriting. Since you enjoy dressing up so much, I thought it was time you had a proper role. Check the pink box in the closet. Put everything on. Then follow the instructions. Don't make me wait, Danielle. The name hit me like a blade. Danielle. My knees nearly buckled as I sat down on the edge of the bed. She knew. Not just suspected, knew. And somehow she had planned this. A storm of thoughts rushed through my head. Was she angry? Was this punishment? A game? Something else entirely? Slowly, I walked to the closet and knelt down. At the bottom sat a pastel pink box decorated with gold lettering. For my pretty maid. My breath caught. After a long hesitation, I opened it. Inside was a pristine maid uniform, black satin trimmed with white lace. Beneath it were layers of petticoats, a delicate apron, garters, gloves, and a slim black choker. A pair of glossy, white heels rested beside everything. And underneath it all lay a sheet of paper titled, Danielle's Duties, Day 1. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Shower and shave completely. Put on the full uniform. Clean the entire apartment. Send me a photo when you're finished. Smile. This is only the beginning. I sank down onto the floor. Emma hadn't guessed. She hadn't stumbled into this accidentally. This was deliberate. Every detail planned. What unsettled me most wasn't anger in her messages. It was amusement. My fingers brushed against the satin uniform. It felt impossibly soft. I should have been furious, humiliated, terrified. And I was. But underneath those emotions was something else. Something thrilling. That realization scared me even more. Still, I slowly began removing the red dress, hanging it carefully back in the closet. The stockings followed, then the wig and makeup until the mirror reflected nothing but me again. Just Dan. A nervous man standing in the middle of something he couldn't fully understand. The shower water struck my skin like a shock. I followed every instruction, washing, shaving, removing every trace of hair. The process took far longer than expected. By the time I stepped out, steam had fogged the mirror. When I wiped it clear, the reflection staring back seemed different. Softer somehow. Almost unfamiliar. Back in the bedroom, the uniform waited. The satin bodice hugged my waist tightly, the petticoat giving the skirt a gentle flare. The apron tied neatly behind me, its bow resting perfectly at the small of my back. The white heels clicked softly against the floor when I walked. Then came the rest. Gloves. Choker. Carefully applied makeup. Winged eyeliner, pink gloss, and a light blush across my cheeks. The wig settled into place last. When I looked up again, Dan had disappeared. Danielle stood in the mirror instead. I hesitated before lifting my phone and taking the picture she'd asked for. A moment later I sent it. All done. The reply arrived almost instantly. Emma, good girl. I'm watching your progress. Don't miss a single corner. Watching. My heart raced. Was she speaking metaphorically or literally? I grabbed the cleaning supplies and started working. Vacuuming. Dusting. Scrubbing the bathroom tiles while kneeling on the floor. Each movement made the skirt sway around my thighs and the heels wobble beneath me. Every time I passed a mirror, I caught another glimpse of the strange figure I'd become. Yet slowly it started to feel natural. Hours later, I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. The apartment looked immaculate. Another message appeared. Emma, nice work. Now open the drawer in my desk. That drawer had always been locked. Yet when I pulled on it now, it slid open easily. Inside rested another envelope and a pink collar with a tiny heart charm. My pulse quickened as I unfolded the note. Rules moving forward. Danielle will remain dressed inside the apartment. Daily tasks will be sent by text. You will refer to yourself as Danielle. You will obey without argument. Let's see how long before you beg to make this permanent. The note slipped from my hand. This wasn't a prank. It was something far bigger. My mind screamed to refuse, to end it immediately. But my hands moved on their own. I picked up the collar and fastened it around my neck. The charm rested gently against my throat. Engraved on its surface was a single word. Danielle. The instructions continued through the evening. Cooking dinner. Cleaning afterward. Following each message, she sent with careful obedience. Eventually, she directed me to another pink box hidden beneath the bed. Inside was a soft satin nightgown and another note instructing me to kneel beside the bed and repeat a simple phrase. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt nervous anticipation. When I finished, another message appeared. Emma, you're learning quickly. Then came the final message of the night. Emma, tomorrow we take the next step. You'll go outside. The word echoed in my mind. Outside. Public. Panic twisted inside my chest. Yet somewhere deep down, a forbidden excitement stirred. Morning arrived far too quickly. Laid neatly across the bed was a new outfit, a delicate blue dress with white trim, paired with tights and polished shoes. My phone buzzed. Emma, walk to the cafe on 5th Street. Order something sweet. Wait for instructions. The walk felt unreal. Each step filled me with nervous energy. But once inside the cafe, no one seemed to notice anything unusual. To them, I was just another woman ordering a sugary drink. Then my phone buzzed again. Emma, look under your chair. My heart raced as I reached beneath the seat. A pink envelope had been taped there. Inside was a photograph. A picture of me kneeling the night before. On the back she'd written, "You belong to me now.
Come home, Danielle."
When I returned to the apartment and opened the door, Emma was standing there waiting. She wore a fitted black dress, arms crossed, a small smile on her lips. Her eyes moved slowly over my appearance. "Well," she said softly, "look at you." I swallowed nervously. "Emma, She raised a single finger.
"No."
"Speak only when I ask." Something inside me shifted. I lowered my gaze. "Yes, ma'am." Emma circled around me slowly, examining the dress, the bow, the collar resting at my throat. Her smile widened slightly. "I watched every step," she said. "Every little transformation." Then she leaned closer. "And you didn't resist." Emma didn't look surprised. Instead, she stepped closer and moved behind me, her breath warm against my ear. "Did you really think I hadn't noticed this part of you?" she whispered softly. A shiver ran through me. "I saw it long before you ever admitted it to yourself." My heart raced as I slowly turned to face her. "I wanted a partner," she continued calmly. "But I also wanted something else, the Maid. Someone pretty, obedient, someone willing to give up control and exist for my approval." Her eyes moved over my outfit, the collar at my neck, the trembling hands clutching my apron. "And look at you now." I swallowed hard. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Why go through all of this? Why not just tell me what you wanted?" Emma smiled faintly. "Because you would have refused." I hesitated. She raised an eyebrow. "Well," my shoulders slumped. "No," I admitted. "Exactly," she said, stepping closer until our faces were only inches apart. "But now you understand the feeling. You've experienced it." Her fingers gently lifted my chin. "And you don't want to go back." I opened my mouth to protest, to insist that I was still Dan, still the same man I had always been. But the truth stared back at me from the hallway mirror.
The dress.
The makeup, the collar, and the way my body reacted whenever she touched me. "I don't know who I am anymore," I whispered. Emma leaned forward and brushed a soft kiss across my lips. "You belong to me," she murmured. "That's all that matters." Then she handed me a small box. "Open it." Inside was a thick envelope sealed with gold wax. When I unfolded the document inside, my stomach dropped.
It was a contract.
Detailed and formal. Live-in maid agreement. Wardrobe requirements. Daily responsibilities. Behavioral expectations. At the bottom was a line declaring a new legal name. Danielle Marie Blake.
My throat went dry.
"You're serious?" I asked. Emma simply handed me a pen. I looked at the paper. Then at her. Then at my reflection. Was this madness? Love? A desperate search for identity? I didn't know. But my hand moved anyway. The pen scratched against the paper. And I signed. The ink had barely settled when Emma lifted the document from my hands, smiling with quiet satisfaction. "Good girl," she said, sliding it neatly into a folder labeled Property of Emma Blake. "Now we begin your real training." I stood there feeling dizzy, the skirt of my dress swaying slightly around my legs. Had I truly just given up everything? My name, my identity. For her? "Yes, ma'am," I murmured. Oddly, the words felt like relief. There were no more choices to wrestle with. No more inner arguments. I belonged to her now, and she would shape me into whatever she wanted. That very afternoon, Emma introduced my new routine. She handed me a clipboard. "Your daily schedule," she explained. "Wake at 6. Hair brushed. Makeup applied. Uniform pressed. Floors cleaned. Bathroom spotless. Breakfast served to her by 7. She slowly walked around me, observing my posture like a strict instructor. "From now on," she said, "Danielle refers to herself in the third person." My throat tightened. "Say it." I hesitated. Danielle will remember that." Emma smirked. "You'll adjust." The uniform she assigned me became stricter over time. High collars, layered frills, a tightly laced corset that made every breath shallow. Each step I took reminded me of my new role. Emma tolerated no mistakes. If I forgot to curtsy when she entered a room, she made me redo my chores in towering heels. If I accidentally said, "I" instead of "Danielle," I spent an hour alone reciting affirmations in front of a mirror. But I kept obeying, because whenever she was pleased, she smiled. And I found myself craving that smile more than anything. Soon she began sharing carefully staged photos of me online, hidden behind playful usernames. Her perfect maid, blushing Danielle. Strangers left comments praising the obedient maid in the pictures, calling me pretty, saying I was lucky to serve someone so confident and powerful. The attention should have frightened me. Instead, it thrilled me. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was becoming someone new, someone softer, someone who didn't need to hide. Weeks passed. The outside world slowly faded. Friends stopped calling. My workplace assumed I had taken extended leave. Even my phone changed. Emma customized everything: pink themes, filtered contacts, restricted calls. One evening, as I served dinner, Emma reached across the table and gently touched my hand. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "you were always conflicted, torn between the person you believed you should be and the one you truly were." She lifted my chin. "But now look at you." I glanced down at my neatly polished nails and soft hands, at the skirt brushing lightly against my thighs. Everything about me had changed. "I barely remember what it felt like," I admitted quietly. Emma leaned closer. "Because Danielle is the real you," she whispered. "Dan was only a mask." I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. That night she asked me to kneel beside the bed. Not as punishment, not as training, just to rest my head against her lap while she gently stroked my hair. "I'm proud of my little maid," she whispered softly. Tears slipped down my cheeks. For the boy I used to be, for the girl I had become, and for the strange, complicated love that had reshaped everything. The next morning I woke to the sound of heels tapping across the floor.
Emma.
Even before opening my eyes, I stood and curtsied automatically, a habit now etched into my body. She walked slowly around me, examining her creation with quiet satisfaction. Finally she spoke. "Danielle, you've done very well." My heart fluttered at the praise. "Thank you, ma'am." "But now," she continued, "we're ready for the next step." I blinked. "The next step?" Emma's smile grew slightly. "I've accepted a remote position in another city." My stomach tightened. "What about us?" She knelt beside me and brushed my cheek with her fingers. "Oh, darling, you're not coming with me." My breath caught. "But I'm your maid." "You are," she replied calmly. "Just not anymore." She handed me another envelope. "Transfer papers. I've arranged for you to work for a friend of mine. She's been looking for someone obedient." My body went cold. "You said this was about us." Emma shrugged lightly.
It was.
"But now it's about you." She stood and looked down at me. "I helped you discover who you really are." Tears blurred my vision. "I don't want to go," I whispered.
But you will, she said gently.
"Because this is your life now." She leaned forward and kissed my forehead. "Be a good girl, Danielle." Then she turned and walked toward the door. Moments later it closed behind her. Silence filled the apartment. I remained standing there in my uniform, her lipstick still faintly visible on my cheek. When I glanced at the hallway mirror, the reflection staring back told the truth. Dan was gone. Only Danielle remained, a perfectly trained maid, left to begin her new life.